That evening, my niece was sitting next to me on the sofa, casually scrolling through her phone as we chatted about nothing in particular. Suddenly she froze. Her hand stopped mid-swipe, her eyes locked on the screen. Her voice trembled slightly. "Auntie, is that Uncle Charles?" I leaned over to look, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Charles. He was with a young woman. They were both laughing under the dim glow of a bar light, as if nothing else in the world mattered more than each other in that moment. But what made my throat tighten wasn't the girl's face. It was the bracelet on her wrist. One I could never mistake. White gold. Small, sparkling diamonds. And inside, the familiar engraved letters, L.H. Short for Love, Helen. The gift Charles gave me on our 10th wedding anniversary. I stared at the phone screen. For a long time. As if by staring long enough it might all reverse. The girl would vanish, the bracelet would return to my wrist, and Charles would still be the man I once trusted. But no. That moment made one thing painfully clear. Some things that once belonged to you, now don't. My name is Helen Donovan. I'm 42 years old. For the past 14 years I've been known as Charles's wife. We weren't some fairy tale couple. No dreamy pictures posted online with sweet hashtags. We had a quiet, simple life, where happiness lived in the little things. Sunday pancakes, sunny summer road trips, and unspoken deals about who remembers birthdays and who handles the bills. Charles wasn't romantic, but he was meticulous. Always returned the shopping cart. Always double-checked the locks. Quietly filled the tires without me asking. I used to think, with him I was safe. I was seen. I was loved, quietly, steadily. And then, on our 10th anniversary, he surprised me. A candlelit dinner. A vase of carefully arranged roses. And a small velvet box in his hand. Inside was the white gold bracelet. Delicate. Elegant. Tiny diamonds catching light like stars in my eyes. And the engraving, L.H. Love, Helen. I touched the letters as if afraid to scratch the memory. In that moment I felt seen, cherished, not by grand words, but by a gesture deep enough to make me believe. I was even more moved when I learned it cost $18,000. With Charles's income, that was no small sum. We weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. That made the gift all the more meaningful. It symbolized the love we had built together. Through hard startup days, shared joys and burdens, always side by side. I only wore the bracelet on truly special occasions. Parties, anniversaries. The rest of the time I kept it safe in the vault. Because to me it wasn't just jewelry. It was memory. It was love. And now that part was on another woman's wrist. Time, no matter how gentle, wears even the things we thought would last forever. Even the strongest metal fades. Somewhere along our journey, something had changed. No loud fights. No Cold War. Just a quiet fracture from within. Charles started coming home later. Said the store kept him busy. Paperwork, late shipments, new clients. Sounded reasonable. I believed him. I didn't even have time to be suspicious. My days were filled with taking care of the kids, making dinner, helping with homework, attending parent-teacher meetings, cooking laundry. The list never seemed to end. Then slowly little changes began to appear. A new dress shirt, better tailored, more modern in color. A different cologne, stronger, more intense, nothing like what he used to wear. A pair of polished leather shoes that echoed with each step on the hardwood floor. Charles started eating dinner at home less often. He stopped hugging me from behind like he used to. Morning kisses turned into quick gestures. Sometimes just a nod. They were all small things, but when put together they painted a different picture. A strange one. I remember once joking, "You're dressing up a lot lately. Got a date or something?" He laughed, avoiding eye contact. "Just meeting with clients. Thought I should look more put together." I laughed along, but something inside me stirred. Charles began smiling at his screen more often. Messages he didn't want me to see. Quick, hurried phone calls. Then a new lock screen password. He said nothing. And I didn't ask. I didn't explode. I didn't accuse. I simply watched. Every late night. Every averted glance. Every little detail. I began to remember them all. And then it all unraveled, on what seemed like a normal Friday night. My niece came over. We sat in the kitchen sipping tea and chatting. She was scrolling through Instagram talking casually when she suddenly froze. "Aunt Helen, this guy looks just like Uncle Charles," she laughed, handing me her phone. I took the phone, and my heart nearly stopped. A blurry photo, dim lighting like in a bar. A man. A young woman. Her red dress stood out, making her unmistakable. They stood close, intimate like lovers. But what froze me wasn't her. Wasn't the closeness. It was the bracelet on her wrist. The white gold bracelet, studded with tiny diamonds. A tiny scratch on the clasp. Only I would know, having touched it 100 times. The engraving L.H. Faint, but still visible when zoomed in. I looked closely. There was no mistaking it. In that moment I stood up. Without a word. Walked into the bedroom. Opened the safe. The velvet box was still there. But inside, empty. He had taken the bracelet. Without a word. As if it had never been mine. I sat on the edge of the bed. My hands cold. My heart colder. That night he came home as usual. Opened the door, took off his tie, his coat. He said as he always did. Meeting ran late. Dinner with clients. I looked at him. Nodded calmly. "I'm a little tired," I replied, my voice light. Then I sat back down. Same spot. Same quiet. As if nothing had happened. But inside I knew everything had begun to change. That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat alone in the study. No overhead light. Just the soft glow of a desk lamp spilling across the old wooden desk. A desk where I once wrote Christmas cards, shopping lists, and planned family trips. I opened the file drawer. Flipped through folders. Car insurance, lease papers, the kids' school reports. Then stopped at an old cream-colored folder, yellowed with time. Inside were the receipt from the jewelry store, the appraisal certificate, the warranty. And a small handwritten note Charles once slipped into the box. Just a few lines. For the woman who chose to stay. Every day. I laid it all out on the desk, then opened my laptop. One by one I scrolled through old photos. Last year's birthday, Christmas at his mother's, the reunion dinner we attended together. I saw myself in those moments now gone. Smiling brightly, hand resting on the table, wrist adorned with that silver-white bracelet. No one could mistake it. No one could say it belonged to anyone else. I saved each photo, carefully labeling them. Thanksgiving under 2022, anniversary dinner under 10 was, picnic under K. The next morning, Charles walked into the kitchen like any other day. His gray robe draped loosely over his shoulders. A faint scent of aftershave lingered in the air. He poured himself a cup of coffee, humming a familiar tune. The same one he always played on weekends while cleaning the backyard. Then he dropped 2 slices of bread into the toaster. His hand gently turned the dial like nothing had changed. "1 slice or 2? He asked with the same calm, familiar voice. I didn't answer. I simply sipped my tea, looked at him, then out the window, where the morning sun lit up the turning maple leaves. I waited until he sat down. Then I placed a folder beside me, pulled out a single sheet of paper and gently slid it toward him. He glanced at it, hand still wrapped around his coffee cup. He blinked. Furrowed his brow. "What is this?" he asked, voice lower, cautious. I held his gaze. "The receipt," I said. "For the bracelet. From the jewelry store that year." He froze. I saw his throat move as he swallowed. He picked up the paper, staring at it. A moment of hesitation. "Helen," he began, words stumbling. "I thought you didn't wear it anymore. You said the clasp was tricky, remember?" I kept my eyes on him, voice steady. "I may not wear it, but it's still mine." I wasn't angry. Just direct. No more room for avoidance. He said nothing. Eyes not meeting mine. And in that silence, I knew every excuse had lost its meaning. I stood up. Picked up the paper. Tell her to return the bracelet, I said softly as breath. I didn't wait for him to nod. Didn't wait for promises. I turned and left the kitchen. Behind me was the soft click of the toaster and the scent of coffee still hanging in the air. I don't know how long he sat there, but I know I gave him a chance. Way back. A quiet moment to reconsider. I waited. One day. Then a full week. The bracelet never came back. The girl in the red dress was the secretary from the partner company. They met over business dinners. The client meetings Charles used to mention. She knew he had a wife, children, a family, but she chose to step in anyway. And Charles didn't say no. I called Claire on a Tuesday afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the backyard. We used to be best friends, back in college before she became a well-known attorney in the city. Though we hadn't spoken in years, when I dialed her number she picked up on the very first ring. It's me, I said. Claire talked with me and we agreed to meet that Friday afternoon. Her office was on the third floor of an old brick building. I arrived 10 minutes early. Claire came out to greet me with a gentle smile and a warm hug. She made me a cup of hot tea. I began to tell her everything, from the Instagram photo to the empty safe, to Charles's averted eyes the morning after. Claire listened. No interruptions. No judgment. Her face didn't shift much, her eyes never left mine. When I told her I wanted to reclaim the bracelet through legal means, Claire was a bit surprised. But gradually she understood. At this point I just wanted to send the mistress a message. Somewhere deep down maybe I still wanted to hold on to Charles. One last time. 3 days later we officially filed a civil lawsuit. Defendant: Melody Hayes. Charge: unlawful possession of personal property. Item value: over $10,000. Claire didn't rush anything. She handled every document like she was piecing together a painting that needed absolute precision. The original receipt from the jeweler. Appraisal certificate from a professional. Photos of me wearing the bracelet at family events. The engraving inside, LH. She arranged everything in chronological order. Numbered them. Annotated each. Filed it like she was preparing for a major courtroom showdown. Though this was just a civil case. One afternoon while I was reviewing the documents, Claire looked up and gently asked, "This might attract attention. The press, social media. Are you sure you're ready for that?" I didn't even hesitate. She was the one who flaunted the bracelet online, I said. I'm simply protecting what's mine. A week later, the summons was officially sent to Melody Hayes, via certified mail with signed receipt. No response. No apology. But 2 days after that, her Instagram account, the one that posted the infamous photo, disappeared. Gone. As if it had never existed. Then 3 days later my phone rang. Charles's name appeared on the screen. I waited until the 4th ring to pick up. She's panicking, he said. Melody wants to talk to you. In person. I answered calmly and clearly. If she has anything to say, she can say it to my lawyer. On the other end of the line, Charles went silent. So long I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. I stayed silent too, because now I had nothing left to explain. I had done the right thing. I had proof. I had the law. I had the truth. And this time I wouldn't fold the truth up and tuck it away in a drawer. I would keep it where the light could reach it. Where my voice wouldn't be ignored anymore. News spread faster than I expected. It began quietly. A community blog ran a small headline, something people skimmed over like a quirky story. By nightfall, a local news site picked it up and added a few more details. Park benches began to whisper. The next morning as I poured my coffee, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Old friends sent me links. Former colleagues left shocked emojis. By noon, it had made the front page of a national news site. The headline read, "Wife sues mistress over 10-year anniversary bracelet." The cover photo showed Melody hurrying out of a bar, bracelet glinting under the lights. Comments poured in like a heavy storm. Oh my God, she's fierce. Good for her. That's what a modern woman looks like. Amid the noise I read everything. Some laughed, called me petty, all that over a few diamonds. Others admired me, said I was brave, called me a legend of everyday life. Some were neutral, just curious to see what would happen next. To me, all that noise was just wind. I didn't need to be a symbol. I wasn't looking for applause. I didn't rise out of vengeance. What pushed me was fairness, for myself. A simple acknowledgement that my memories, my feelings, and over 10 years of shared life deserved respect. I had the receipt, the LH engraving, and dozens of photos, happy days and hard days, with that bracelet on my wrist. More importantly, I kept my mind clear, not letting anger cloud my judgment. In the heart of all the noise, I sat at our old kitchen table and opened the brown leather journal I used for important notes. A short bullet point, but deeply carved. I closed the book, looked up at the framed photos on the wall. The kids smiling, Charles beside me at that old anniversary party. The family portrait may have faded, but the frame still held. The media storm would pass. And when it did, what remained would be the truth. And the strength of a woman who chose to protect herself. And I, more than ever, was ready to face what came next. With the truth in my hands and my head held high. The hearing took place on a Thursday morning, colder than usual. Breath turned into pale mist in the air, and the coffee in my hand cooled before the second sip. The city seemed to curl up under a thin blanket of fog. Everything moved slowly, quietly, except for my heartbeat. I chose a simple navy dress, formal, modest. No patterns, no accessories. Melody did not appear and accepted the default judgment. The ruling was issued. Melody Hayes was ordered to return the bracelet. She was responsible for all legal costs. And to write a formal apology letter. In writing. It seemed Charles had spoken to her beforehand. They weren't present that day. No calls. No texts. He chose silence. And I let that silence speak for all that needed to be said. I didn't file for divorce right away. I'm not the kind of person who ends things in anger. I needed time. I needed space. Not just for me, but for our 2 children. They're still young. And they deserve a happy family. A week after the hearing, I packed our things. 1 suitcase for the 3 of us. Just enough clothes, bedtime books, sunscreen, and a few small toys. I booked a trip to a seaside town I had visited as a child. A place where no one knew me and I didn't have to explain a thing. People often think revenge has to be loud. Full of shouting. Breaking things. Hurting back. But sometimes revenge is as quiet as a closing door. As quiet as walking into court with your head held high. As quiet as placing the bracelet back into the safe, where it belongs. That is dignity intact. Not bargained for. Not waiting for anyone to make it right. If you've ever been in my place, ever been dismissed, ever had something rightfully yours taken away, then remember your voice matters. You are not alone. And you don't have to scream to be heard. If this story spoke to you, leave a comment below. Maybe someone else is also on the journey to reclaim themselves. And if you feel like it, hit like, share, and subscribe.